Guys, I just want to share this book, 1984, with you all, George Orwell. I'm sure, like me, a lot of you have read this in high school, but it really didn't mean much to me then because I had no idea that it was really a vision for the future of the New World Order. Now I understand, in retrospect, what all of it meant, but what I am reading is so analogous with the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower organization. George Orwell gives you a picture of Big Brother or the New World Order in the future and what they did to control the minds of their sheeple. Well, in this book, it explains exactly the techniques that the Watchtower of Jehovah's Witnesses uses. It's so telling that the Watchtower is involved in this mind control agenda because they have implemented every way that they can control the mind. And you're going to see how it concurs with George Orwell's Big Brother. So Big Brother in this book, I see as the Watchtower of Jehovah's Witnesses. So I am going to read some paragraphs, and you guys, if you are a witness or ever were, you will definitely understand this or overstand it. If you were never a Jehovah's Witness, you will understand it, but not overstand it. So I'm going to preface it by giving you a little background. The Jehovah's Witnesses are known as a publishing company. And because of that, they have books that they have written, dozens, hundreds of books, millions of magazines that they've written. And in these books, if you go to the latter dates, like 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 50, you're going to see that not only have their teachings changed, but you will also see that the books that they wrote in the past were lies. They were found to be they were making prophecies that never happened. They said Armageddon was coming like within a day or whatever. They gave a date and it never happened. The world was going to end. They gave statistics, everything that were completely incorrect and found to be a lie. So what they've done is destroyed all of that evidence so that anyone coming to the organization now, someone who was younger then but older now, they have no idea or concept that they are in an organization that is a publisher of lies and a publisher that destroys all evidences so that they will never understand what was said in the past. So I'm going to read some excerpts and you guys will see the correlations as I read it, okay? Here it begins. Day by day and almost minute by minute, the past was brought up to date. In this way, every prediction made by the party could be shown by documentary evidence to have been correct. Nor was any item of news or any expression of opinion which conflicted with the needs of the moment ever allowed to remain on record. All history was erased, scraped clean, and reinscribed exactly and as often as was necessary. In no case would it have been possible, once the deed was done, to prove that any falsification had taken place. The largest section of the records department, or Watchtower Jehovah's Witnesses, for larger than the one in which Winston worked, consisted simply of persons whose duty it was to track down and collect all copies of books, newspapers, and other documents which had been superseded or were due for destruction. A number of the times, which might, because of changes in political alignment or mistaken prophecies uttered by Big Brother or the Watchtower, have been rewritten a dozen times, still stood on the files bearing its original dates. And no other copy existed to contradict it. Books also were recalled and rewritten again and again and were invariably reissued without any admission that any altercation had been made. It was merely the substitution of one piece of nonsense for the other. Most of the material that you were dealing with had no connection with anything in the real world, not even the kind of connection that is contained in a direct lie. And so it was with every class of recorded fact, great or small, everything faded away into a shadow world. There were the armies of reference clerks whose job it was to simply draw up lists of books, periodicals which were due for recall. There were the vast repositories where the corrected documents were stored, and the hidden furnaces where the original copies were destroyed. And somewhere or other, quite anonymous, there were the directing brains, or the anointed governing body, who coordinated the whole effort and laid down the lines of policy which made it necessary that this fragment of the past should be preserved, or that one falsified and the other one rubbed out of existence. So tricky a piece of work would never have been entrusted to a single person. On the other hand, to turn it over to a committee would be to admit openly that an act of fabrication had taken place. Very likely, as many as a dozen people were now working away on rival versions of what Big Brother or the governing body had actually said. And presently, some master brain in the inner party would select this version or that version. They would re-edit it and set in motion the complex processes of cross-referencing that would be required. And then the chosen lie would pass into the permanent records and become truth. This is the Watchtower. This is exactly the tactics that they use, the way that they get rid of evidence of all of their lies in the past. So much so that anyone that was in the organization 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 100 years ago, they do not speak the same language as someone who becomes a modern day Jehovah's Witness, because all of their lies have been changed into something else. And so this is how the deception works, guys. If you can destroy evidence, if you can make people think that you have the truth by not reflecting on the lies of the past or getting rid of the evidence, which they have the power to do evidently, then you will continue to keep the minds of your sheeple under your control. The Watchtower is the Big Brother of 1984. I hope you guys read it. Take care. Shalom and Barakathon.